Alrighty, here we go again. So, I have a plan. My plan involves landing somewhere in here. In there. Somewhere. I don't know where, but it's going to be in here somewhere. But what we have to do is we have to slow our roll, if you will. So I have a massive orbit here. Let's just set this up so you can actually see. 28.3 thousand kilometers out, up to a close approach of 34 kilometers, which is quite the difference. So I'm going to shoot up this way, and I'm going to come back down, and we're going to see if the way that I've set this up, this mission, this spaceship that I have in orbit, will allow me to decelerate in atmosphere. I think I might just zoom in as well once I get 2 apoaps, just to give you a relative scale of the distances between myself and Kerbin. So let's do that. Not quite there. Let's do that there. Alright, and let's get ourselves in to where Apoaps actually is. Following this craft, of course. And this is more or less the furthest point away that you're going to get. Where's Duna? Oh wait, it's right there. The highest point. Just to give you a bit of perspective. I'm going to zoom down, and we're going to see if this craft survives the very thin atmosphere of Duna itself. I imagine that it will. We're also going to see what kind of a change that will affect in the Apoaps itself, which again, 28,267.05, whatever. Let's see what happens. But first, let's save. Alright, so we've zoomed in a fair amount. Coming down on Kerbin itself. We're passing through the orbit of Ike around Duna. Getting very close indeed to Duna itself as we do so. Gonna go under Ike and under Duna. I think that's pretty cool. Orbital dynamics are fun. Anyway, let's see where we are in the actual orbit itself. Well, we're getting close. I'm not going to do a burn here, but I am going to wait until I'm more or less here. Well, let's just zoom up to that point in time, I guess. Until I'm more or less in this area here. And then, when we're just about to run out of sunlight, as we come under the pole, and we're just about to run out of sunlight, we're going to go ahead and disable these as we enter the atmosphere. So let's speed this up a little bit. Let's get ourselves down to about 40 kilometers, give or take. So roughly around here, we encounter the atmosphere. At least in theory we do. We should be fine, but I'm going to disable these now, just to be safe so that they don't get torn off in atmosphere. And I'll disable the ones on the probes for the same reason. Let's get that one done. We're almost done here. And at some point I do obviously need to add action groups so that this is a lot easier, but this is kind of instructive at the same point. So, that's what this ship looks like sans solar cells. And now we're coming to more or less the lowest point in orbit. We've barely caught the atmosphere. But what is that doing to our periaps? Well, it's dropping it. We're doing an aero brake. And so we've already brought it down by more than 50 kilometers. Which, granted, would take a long time for us to orbit over and over and over again and bring that down to a reasonable level. And as we do so, of course, eventually there'll be a point reached where the periapse itself, which will slowly drop off as you get the apoapse down further and further, that will eventually start dropping as well, and you'll enter into a suborbital trajectory. But for the time being, this would be a way to get captured by the planet. As long as you can get within the atmosphere and have a captured orbit, you don't need to expend any delta V, you don't need to expend any fuel in order to get yourself down to a more circularized orbit. And from there, it's just a question of adjusting here and there along the orbit to circularize it and make sure that you don't actually fall into the atmosphere before you want to. So effectively, that's the exercise of what I'm about to do here. I'm going to do a lot of aerobraking. I'm going to bring the periapse down a little bit as well when I'm at apoapse to provide more aerobraking and make this a more efficient process. And as a result, I'll get myself into more or less a polar orbit, which will provide me with the opportunity to land more or less where I want on the planet at any given point, provided that I allow the planet itself to spin. So, let's go ahead and do that. Okay. Well, that's about as good as I could hope for. Let's try to get ourselves focused on good old Duna itself. Alright. Let's see what that does to our orbits over time. Ooh. So close to the planet. Come here. Come here. There we go. Okay. So let's zoom down. And let's see what we got. Let's see what we got. Well, we got ourselves a polar region. And we've got ourselves almost entering the atmosphere. At this point, we can pretty much retract these until we will eventually need them again. And let's see what happens when we encounter the atmosphere. Let's see what really happens at that point. It should be 41. Let's see. 41.5 kilometers above the surface. And we are encountering that red haze just coming off of the planet itself. So, we're going to keep on dipping, and we're going to go down to about 24 kilometers high. And over time, that's going to change our apoapse significantly. And it would appear that we don't have to worry all that much about running into anything either. It's great. I mean, this is one of the reasons why Duna is such it's such an attractive target. Because there is this atmosphere, because you can aerobrake within it, because you are able to slow your ship without really using any thrust. I had to make a 0.3 meter per second adjustment to my orbit in order for me to drop down just that tiny bit more. But in doing so, I'm going to capture a lot more of the atmosphere. Now when we came down, if I remember correctly, we were at 27,490 some odd kilometers in apoapse. And we're going to see with this dip how much of a change that was. Keeping in mind, of course, that we dropped, I think about, well, I can't remember. I'll figure it out in post. But we dropped a significant amount. If memory serves, It was on the order of about 70 kilometers, I believe. Something along those lines. We will see just how much I drop. Now, I'm coming up to the periapse. Now you can see this is how much your altitude is changing, that gauge here. And it's just hit the 0, and now we are going back up again. Up and down. Meters per second change in altitude indicator over here. Anyway, we're now moving out of the atmosphere. I'm going to use some physical time warp here, because it doesn't look like we're going to burn up at all. And I'm going to go around to the top again. And I'm going to bring us a little bit lower, because we've still got a good amount of clearance, and I want to encounter as much atmosphere as possible. And closing in on Apoapse, which has dropped, as you can see, a significant amount by comparison to what it was before. So we're definitely doing the right thing here. Alright, I'm going to just zoom in real tight here. We got 24 minutes to make this burn. But let's go ahead and make this burn right. For half a meter per second, it's more or less nothing. And basically nailed that, give or take. Let's let the ship actually level out. Yeah, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good indeed. Let's refocus on the ship, and let's bring ourselves back down again. And as a matter of fact, before we even do that, yes, I still have solar cells out in a raid. So we'll bring ourselves up to about 10,000 speed. Maybe 100,000, why not? Okay, well that automatically slowed us down, which was very kind. Let's move ourselves up a little bit here. Alright, I think at this point we should start observing what's actually happening. So, once more, speed down time so we can actually do things. Track these solar cells. And here we go under the atmosphere. Let's see a nice glow forming here now. Lovely horizon line. Ah, there we go. Nice little mountain range showing up here. V-shaped mountain range. Who knows how that was formed? Possibly by a massive meteorite coming in. Huge asteroid plowing up dirt all over the place and snow and whatnot. At any rate, we're pretty much down as deep as we're going to go. I think we can afford some physical time acceleration at this point. Let's do that. And just pass underneath this haze of an atmosphere. And out of the influence of the sun very shortly. Yeah, that is a good-looking spacecraft, if you ask me. And at this point, we have basically escaped the atmosphere of Kerbin. So let's go ahead and speed ourselves on out again. Can't warp faster than that under 60 kilometers. Good thing we can at least warp a little bit under 60 kilometers. There we go. That's more like it. Now we're moving. Up above we go. Look at that. So, as you can see, our orbit has been massively altered. Massively altered. I'm actually a little bit scared. Okay, tell you what we're going to do at this point. We're going to burn prograde a little bit. We're actually going to raise our periapse up slightly. We're still going to drop the apoapse, but that periapse is starting to scare me now. Well, that's more or less what we want. So let's just burn a tiny bit that way. We're just going to ever so slightly raise this periapse up. Let's raise it back up to about 15 or so, I guess. There we go. And then we'll zoom back around again. Once more, passing under the influence of Kerbin. Let's track those panels as we get into the atmosphere here. Let's go ahead and physical time warp through. And as we're time warping physically through, let's check what's actually happening here. So as you can see, the periapse is dropping, which is kind of scary, but it's not dropping as fast as the apoapse. Eventually I want to get into a very close orbit, about 42 kilometers up either way. As close as I can make it to that. Of course, the reason for that being that I want to be just above the atmosphere so that I'm not actually getting slowed down anymore and it's a stable orbit, but also so that I can land more or less wherever the heck I please. I think that would be ideal. And as you can see, periapse is slightly getting knocked out from where we're at right now. Even more so now, which is kind of scary when you think about it, right? It's kind of scary that our periapse is dropping that quickly. So what I think I'm going to do, in the interest of my own sanity, is I'm going to roll this ship at this point, and I'm going to burn ever so slightly along the positive vector, and that should bring our periapse back towards us. So, let's do that. Alright, that should be slowing down the periapse just a little bit. There we go. And now, we're just going to try to keep that above ground as best we can. Just burning along the positive vector down here. Trying to keep ourselves aligned along it. Just so that we can be sure that we're going to escape the atmosphere here. Oh man, we're going to have to burn a lot more than that. Basically got ourselves captured here and we came in too deep, so we're going to waste some fuel at this point getting ourselves back up. That's okay. That's fine. What I really don't want is for this apoapse to go too high either. So let's burn above that horizon line. Alright. We're in the atmosphere now. Seriously in the atmosphere now. I messed that up really good. So now... oh man, now let's just get that up above the atmosphere. We'll make a slight correction. And hopefully that'll be okay. Oh boy. Let's try to strike that perfect balance between the amount of thrust that's being applied and the amount of atmosphere that you're burning against. Here we go. Just passed it, and now we're going back up again. Well, I like it. So we've gotten ourselves a nice little captured orbit going on there. It's pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet. And our target? Well, our target is, I think, over here somewhere, but we're not entirely certain. Sadly, we can only do 10 times speed acceleration at this point, because we are so low down to the ground. But I think on the next episode, we're going to get ourselves set up for landing a lander on Kerbin. That should be pretty wonderful. So, until then, thank you all for watching. It has been a pleasure doing this. As many mess-ups as I have had, we have now established ourselves in a quasi-circular orbit around the planet Kerbin. Alright, thanks again. Take it easy.